Hello, welcome to today's episode of Mitten Backstage. Thanks so much for joining us. I am sitting down to chat today with Zack Volkers. Now, a lot of you might know Zack Volkers in the West Michigan music scene as a guitarist, as a dude who is just the positive vibe at so many shows. I feel like every show I went to in like 2018 and 2019, Zack was somewhere in the audience somewhere. But he also has a couple different projects that are brewing. So one is Zack and Friends, kind of a flexible group of musicians, rotating cast of musicians. Songs will never be played twice in that configuration, as you'll hear him explain in the episode. And he also has a brand new group that kind of spawned out of the camaraderie between different members of the Zack and Friends, past iterations. So, he talks a little bit about that. We talk video games. We talk, just about the music scene, just celebrating what we have in Grand Rapids. So if you dig these types of chats, then you're in for a treat today. If you liked today's conversation and you want to support the podcasting efforts that I do, you can head on over to patreon.com/Snedeker. There you can get access to early episodes of the podcasts that I produce in video and audio format, as well as exclusive merch and more. You can also head over to DutchSnedeker.com to see everything else that I'm currently up to around the internet. And don't underestimate your social currency. Any share, like, follow, story post, all of that gets fed into the algorithm, and the mighty algorithm it should bless me with more viewership in the future. That's how the algorithm works, right? You have to pay tribute to the algorithm, the almighty algorithm. But seriously though, any interaction with this type of stuff in whatever way you are used to doing helps me out. All right, let's get into today's episode with Zack Volkers.
Cover all this in the interview too, because that's good material as well.
Right. But yeah, I saw that you went back, or you were back on stage for that show with Desmond Jones. I don't know.
Finally.
I don't know if that was like a long time coming, or if it was just like an out of the blue ask and you're like, all right, I guess I'll put something together.
I actually did get to play on Halloween with Legal Immigrants down in Indianapolis. They had asked me to come down and just be third guitar, extra vocals that night. So me and Jeff Hansen played with them. So that was really like the first show back in the swing of things. But the Desmond show was, we did the first one with them back when I was still with Mello in 2018. And then in 2019 was when they kind of decided they were going to turn it into an annual thing. And I was already on my own at that point, but really hadn't played anything out since leaving the band prior. So that was the first time that I played a show under the Zack and Friends moniker, was that show back in 2019. And just having that relationship with those guys and going back as long as we have, and just kind of turning that into an annual thing when Purchase reached out to me. Maybe a couple months ago, it's just like, hey, you interested in throwing another lineup together for this? Like, yep, absolutely. It's the right one to bring it back to GR with right there.
Yeah, it's hard to beat like a return that's, it's going to be at a well-attended show, and it's like with friends and it's hometown. Like, that's the perfect setting.
and honestly, the biggest thing for me is like, if I'm going to get those guys to play that show and to take that night off, like, I'm always going to make sure my guys are getting paid. So like for me, a lot of it was like coming out of COVID and stuff, like there might have been some gigs to book along the way, but I was just going to take my time until financially it makes sense to do stuff like this, because the amount of time and effort that those guys are putting into things on the back end too, just because the whole concept of the Zack and Friends thing started with no song's ever going to be played twice, ever. So the first show, we had all 6 of us put up an original song. Everybody learned it. We threw a couple other covers in the mix just to fill out the set. That set list, once those songs were played, never going to be played under Zack and Friends again. So the next time we do a Zack and Friends show, whether it's the same lineup or a different lineup, we'll do the exact same process. Everybody puts up a different original song. Everybody learns it. We'll throw a couple new covers in the mix. So it's just a really cool opportunity to kind of take a chance on some songs and know that we're going to do this once and have as much fun with it as possible. Because I'm really going to force that you had to be there type of vibe with that. So it's just kind of a fun way to kind of get around with jamming with friends that I wouldn't normally have a chance to, and just kind of get to explore new stuff and play other people's material in ways that they might have never even envisioned it or seen it. Like having Dino be a part of it, like we did Solo Quiero as part of the set a couple weeks ago, and he's one man looping all the time, so he's like, here's that song how he hears it all the time. So to kind of break it down and turn it into a full band concept, just little things like that, and having the chance to do that it's a really cool opportunity.
Yeah. And I imagine if the band were any busier, that concept would be insane.
Well, so kind of here's what happened after the Thanksgiving show a couple weeks ago is the 6 of us, so me, Daviance Washington on drums, Adam Prada on keys, Brandino on sax, aux percussion, guitar, vocals, Elijah on guitar, and myself. Yeah, all 6 of us are singing too, which is fun. We decided we're going to lock that in as its own project outside of Zack and Friends. So I can kind of keep the Zack and Friends mentality as far as booking a gig or two under that moniker when it makes sense. Use that as the kind of vessel to jam with other people more often, but just I don't know, the vibes we've had working together with the 6 of us, it kind of clicked, and we're like, no, we should do this more often. And now that we started writing some original music together, we're like, obviously we don't want to write these songs to only play them once. The reception has been good enough, especially the original that we played a couple weeks ago was, I don't know, kind of lit a fire under us to like, all right, maybe we should lock this in and do something. So we've already been talking. We've been talking about doing a writing retreat in the next month or two. We're just going to kind of lock ourselves in a cabin or something like that and try and write an album's worth of material and in a weekend. Because the one original that we did write, man, we cranked it out in like 20 minutes, and all of us kind of just sat there looking at each other like that was the easiest writing experience any of us have ever had, and just how quickly it came together. And I don't know, just the right meeting of minds for something like that. So we are figuring out a band name right now is where we're at. We've got 1 gig booked for February. Gonna wait to announce that until the actual event gets announced, and we've got another submission in for a show in February as well. So definitely not gonna put all the eggs in this basket by any means. I know everybody else is super busy too, so we're gonna kind of dub this like the ultimate side project or something of the sorts. We'll play the shows where they make sense and use it as an excuse to just have fun and just do it. And if we put an album out and have something tangible behind it in the next year or two, cool. We're going to try and do some live releases, and definitely fortunate to have my dad does a lot of videography for concerts and stuff. I'm getting able to get soundboard recordings and let him kind of chop some stuff up and mix it down. Will at least let us have some content that we can put out on the front end before we have to worry about putting an album out or anything like that. So definitely going to take that and use that to our advantage.
Yeah, that's huge. Just having having different people around to kind of help facilitate like the speed everything came together of like, oh, we've already been playing, we already have some shared rep, but now we have this desire to all write together, and then you have the show that's videoed. It's like everything's just kind of lining up like, okay, I guess we are doing this.
Exactly. And that's why we kind of took a step back and looked at it like it'd be kind of silly not to at this point, and I mean, I just can't stress enough just how much fun it has been playing with those dudes. Like just the rehearsal process, and even a month or two prior, I guess what would have actually been my first gig after COVID, my best friend got married and asked me to put the band together for that. So that was actually the same lineup as the show a couple weeks ago, except we had John Nowak on drums instead of D. So that was kind of the first getting back together, jamming with all those guys. We learned like 30 covers for that night, and just a couple weeks of rehearsals leading up, and just kind of like getting the toes wet with that, and then going into booking the show and playing it, it's like, this is, it'd be a shame to not take advantage of the energy we got together. So
yeah, to just have the different parts of everything coming together, like distinct personalities, like everything just kind of, yeah.
And that's the thing too, is everybody individually in this group has been in so many other things, whether it's solo projects with Dino doing his own thing, D having Groove Ground, Elijah having his collective, Parada doing solo stuff. And, it's just like everybody has been as well with, as many projects as he's in. So it's like everybody has the tools to market, to promote, to write. Everybody's like an active participant in it, which is really cool. Because, everybody's been in projects where there's always going to be a couple people that take creative lead or take, just the structuring of how we're going to approach it. And in this, it seems really organic in the sense that everybody is just there because we want to be here.
Yeah. It's a good place to start with a band.
Yeah, it really is. It really is, man. What you been up to, man? How have things been on your end? You guys been busy gigging? Seeing you guys doing your stuff too. So
yeah, it's funny. Like if I were to just, put down what Earth Radio's been up to, like, not a million shows, but like every show we've done has been, like, oh, we're, co-billing with Flex Decibel. We did the, 3 days with Trino Leaves.
Yep. Those guys are great, man. Trino Leaves is awesome. We did, I think actually when I did a run with Flex Decibel, when I was subbing with them, we played a couple shows with those guys too. And they're some fun dudes to play with.
Yeah, they were fun, great hosts at the venues that we played at. And
they're Ohio, is that right?
Yeah. Yep. In Ohio. Yeah. We played, what was it, Village Idiot and
nice.
Howard's,
maybe?
Yeah,
Howard's, baby. Howard's and Village Idiot, man. They're a couple relics down that way.
Yeah, although the last time I played Howard's, our first time, I guess, back in 2019, like from where it was to where it is now, it's like a completely different stage.
In a good way or a bad way?
Like like $10,000 at least in renovations.
No
good way. Like there's flooring, there's like, there's, I've never seen that many keys just backlined. Like they had a Kawhi, kind of Kawhi's Nord in a fake baby grand shell, and then a Hammond, an MOX, I think 61, like a Yamaha, digital keyboard synth.
Yeah, that's not the Howards I've played.
all new monitors, a great Trace rig, I think that was the house rig.
Good for them, man.
Yeah, and
it's always been a good time.
Wall.
Always had great vibes in that place. Like it just doesn't. It didn't look like that back then. So it's encouraging because we played. I think with Mello, we played there once or twice with Bacano, and then we played there with Flex Decibel, or I played with Flex when we subbed that one weekend, and had some fun times down there for sure.
Yeah, it was. Some of the photos that we posted recently were from Howard's because they have like a big old projection screen and 2 projectors, and it really felt like I felt like that's what that room needed, because it's kind of like it's almost like a big like horseshoe. Like you just kind of come in and it's like, all right, are you gonna stop at the bar? No. Are you gonna stop at the other bar? No. All right, then you gotta go back.
Keep looping around. Yeah, exactly.
So it
was such an interesting little college town out there, though. Like I just feel like you never know what you're gonna get walking into a town like that. Never know.
And my first experience with Bowling Green was like I stayed at like the Holiday Inn or whatever hotel is in there near the campus, and I was playing with a bunch of different saxophone players for was it NASA, the North American Saxophone Alliance.
Sick, dude.
So got all a full weekend of saxophones and all of the saxophone glory. We did like
Hansen in attendance.
I don't know. I wouldn't be surprised if
Caleb Elzinga sighting.
Yeah, just like they're here.
They are.
Yeah, it was like a mix of like mainly collegiate, like some classical sax, some contemporary classical, and then I was part of some of the jazz stuff as well as playing some of the classical stuff. But the jazz stuff we brought from Grand Valley, we made like a super sax group and just had
Sick.
5-part saxophone lines with a jazz combo. We played a bunch
That's
of
super fun.
Charlie Parker songs, but yeah, it's funny like thinking back to that and just kind of being like, what does anyone do here? And then now I've had fun playing there twice.
Right. Times they be a changing.
Yeah. And yeah, so Earth Radio's been keeping a steady workflow.
We're transitioning to the new drummer as well. I mean, that's a fairly recent thing as well? Yeah.
Yeah, it's it's funny because David's personality wise, he gelled right away, and he's been playing percussion in the band over the last year.
Right. That's right. So familiarity with the tracks was already there. It was just a matter of making it happen.
Yeah, and he's added his own kind of flavor too to some parts of songs, and we're kind of figuring out too is like, as the rest of the band who's been there since the beginning, we're hearing how David plays, and now we're like, okay, what could we write that would like showcase some of the things he does differently than Madison, because they both can chop, they both have jazz. David, I think, has a heavier pocket because he's Sabbatical Bob, just a big funk band, and
yep.
I think he's got a church background somewhere. Also knows my cousins, like randomly knows my Washington cousins.
Oh, not even local cousins, like out there.
No, like he grew up on the West Coast, and he was like, yeah, I lived in Washington. And then I just asked him like, oh, do you happen to know like Jeffrey Snedeker or Garrett Snedeker? And he's like, yeah, how do you know Garrett? I'm like, he's my cousin. And turns out his dad is a pianist, and his dad taught my cousin jazz piano.
That's some super small world stuff, man. That's crazy.
We were just like, all right, get in the band. you already know.
Yep.
More people.
Synchronicities there. You gotta lock that in.
Yeah. We've been, some shows, some we're working on this new record, and that mostly in the last month has been mixing, and piecing all of those elements together. I'm going to be doing another musical residency in Ludington in January, February.
So is that where you did the last one as well? Is that West Shore?
Yeah. Yep. Yeah. This will be the third show I've done with them.
I was listening to the Ben Steer interview that you did, and I think that was when you were lamenting at the ABBA songs that you'll never want to listen to again.
Yeah. It's always weird to just be sunk in a musical, and then like, because when you're living in that world, you kind of just whether it's Stockholm syndrome or like you enjoy the music, you're like, this is great, and then you never listen to it after that.
As soon as it's done, yeah, it's like, all right, I'm just gonna let that live for what it was. And
yeah, and well, and I didn't want to end up. I mean, I guess the only way I could end up like this is if I were to tour a musical. But when I subbed in for Wicked at DeVos, like 3 years ago,
I remember that.
Maybe 4 years ago. But the touring pianists who just go on the road all year with the production, I never like. I talked to one of them, and then there was an old guy who like never talked to me ever. He would like slay his part, and then it'd be intermission, he'd just be on his phone, and then play it again, and then just soon like, and last note, gone, immediately gone. Like I haven't even closed my book yet, and he's like gone, and I'm like, all right.
The good old jaded vet approach, gotta love it.
Yeah, it's just like, I'm sick of this. It was like, okay, then you can quit.
It's like, I'm here.
Yeah.
Ready, waiting, and willing. Here I am.
It's like, what? You don't like Grand Rapids for 3 weeks?
You mean DeVos isn't at the top of your tour schedule? I mean, come on, man.
It's a fully equipped theater. Yeah. So, so we're kind of, we're figuring out kind of like how you mentioned with the roles of the band. We're, making sure that we delegate the workload and just kind of be we've been having weekly meetings, even if it's like, 15-20 minutes over Zoom, like every Wednesday. We just check in and make sure that
stay on top of it.
yeah, it's like, all right, you can handle the website. What are we doing to promote these shows? Like we just, got promo today, and I'm gonna put up a post tomorrow, but I think the go rounds already did today. We're doing 2 shows with the go rounds, December 17 and 18.
The one at Bell's, are they both at Bell's, or
One's at Bell's and one's at Pyramid Scheme.
Nice. Okay, I didn't even realize there was one in town. That's easier for me.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah, we
Selfishly, I love that.
Yeah. We figured like with, both bands' locations, it's like, oh, let's just hit each city and just
both markets. That's the best thing about GR and KZoo is like you can get away with doing both back to back, not being an hour away, and you're really not poaching either territory.
Right. It's as much as like sometimes radius clauses are like set up against that, it's like the KZoo people, they want to just, they don't want to drive to GR all the time.
And I don't, for whatever reason, like living in GR, it almost feels like it's easier for me to decide to go to Detroit or Chicago for a show than it is to go to Kalamazoo sometimes. Like I don't know why that is. Like maybe I just know that the bands that are playing in Kalamazoo are probably more likely to get up to GR as soon as like anybody else is. But yeah, I don't know. It's one of those weird things.
Yeah, it is weird. Yeah, because living there for 2 years, I would think of the same, or I didn't think of the same, or the inverse, I guess. I wasn't like, oh, I don't want to go to Grand Rapids because these guys are coming to KZoo soon. It was always like, I'm going to go to Grand Rapids.
Right. Yeah, I imagine when you're like in KZoo, getting out is probably a little bit more alluring than being in Grand Rapids and heading to Kalamazoo. maybe.
Yeah, I don't really know, because like I like a lot of the people I met there. Just something about living in the city, and arguably I didn't have I had 2 years of kind of just like compromise housing. is like, I found housing the last week of the Bang on a Can Summer Music Festival, and that was like end of July, and I didn't have any money, so I came home.
Compromise housing is such a great term.
Yeah, I reached out on Facebook, and like a friend that I used to go to high school with was like, oh, I'm living with a couple other people, and I'm like, all right, there's my house. That's a week.
Play it by ear.
Yeah, and then the other living situation was like, it was supposed to be like it was Spindler Hall, and Spindler, I guess, was set up as like, this is for graduate students, supposedly adult students coming back to college after years and needing more of an apartment than a dorm, and nothing felt updated beyond like the 50s. It was just a lot of like tile and concrete, and it was cold, and
sounds really comforting.
Yeah, it was like
a really nice place to lay your head at night.
Yeah, it was like almost living in like a public bathroom.
The faint smell of bleach accompanying everything.
Yeah, and just like old style heaters, and like nothing was treated, so it was just like, okay, my room's super reflecty, every other room is super reflecty, so I can just hear everything going on all the time. So
serenity.
Yeah, just peace. Just wonderful peace.
Yeah,
and
this is the first time that my girlfriend and I have either been in a living situation without roommates, and I got to tell you, never going back, man. Never going back.
I am dreaming of just the like, even if it's a studio apartment, like just something that's mine, that I don't have to like, I can I can leave things set up. I can, like, one thing about this rental that like I have posters, and the tack's probably going to leave little sticky tack's going to leave little marks maybe, but I can't hang anything on the walls. So it's like, I have so many things that I could put on shelves that I can't put up.
It's we got fortunate with this spot, but it's just, like you said, just coming home and not having to like adjust to anybody else's energy level in a house it's a beautiful thing.
Yeah, that's the goal. Whatever it looks like, just being able to come home and it's like this is my place. There, I'm not, there's no
It's like,
there's no other
things are
variable.
exactly as I left them.
And then you're like, oh wait, I have to take care of all this.
Yeah, it's a choice I'm ready to make. Ready to make.
Mm-hmm. Well, and I thought too, like, it's not like a midlife crisis-y feel, but like, I'm gonna turn 30 in September, and I was thinking about when my birthday was in September, so I was like, what do I want my 30s to be? And I was just making like a short list of like these are things I want to do in my 30s. So how do I get myself on track to start that when I turn 30? So
Like
that
a goal map of sorts.
and something more realistic than like I'm gonna be famous.
It's
It's
like
like doing what?
tangible, real things that I can do to improve my life. And yeah, I turned 30 in October as well, so I'm feeling you right there with you. A lot of those mental, just like, oh wow, like that's a real thing. Like, oh, my knees really do hurt more today. That's a real thing too. Like,
Oh, I can't just be invincible anymore.
no,
I am
man,
vulnerable.
I raked the yard 3 days ago, and I am still feeling it today. Like, feeling it. Hell of a core workout.
Yeah, you're just like, when did like mundane tasks like become fitness?
When it's like I have a fairly physical job for work, like Monday through Friday gig too. So like it's always just like taken aback how like doing some sort of like physical activity outside of the normal routine that I'm doing for work. It's like, oh wow, I don't engage that part of my body ever.
Yeah, that's where I'm like, you know, the the fitness gurus who it seems like all they do is just lift weights. And it's like, yeah, but I think of like the more all like it because I'm getting access to a fitness center when I'm at doing this residency thing.
Oh,
I was
nice,
like, oh,
nice.
what things do I want to like? I don't want to just sit at one machine or like, oh, I'm only going to use a treadmill. Like, I want to have like some basic knowledge of
For
different
me,
things.
and for me, yeah, it's like this winter, I'm in the same boat. Like I'm gonna at least find somewhere that I can get into, just to not keep me from going crazy, stir crazy in the winter. But yeah, it's like I almost need somebody to like tell me. I feel like I would like thrive in an environment that much, or I would so much better if there was somebody like, all right, we're gonna do this, and then we're gonna move to this, and like when left to my own devices in a gym, it's so overwhelming.
Yeah, I'm just like, I think I'm doing 50. All right, I'm gonna leave.
Just looking around, just like if nobody's giving me any weird looks, and it's like I guess I'm doing this right.
Yeah, because you also don't want to end up. I see all those gym fail compilations of people using machines incorrectly.
It's like
Or
you're gonna
just
need to child-proof this for me, please.
yeah, put a detailed picture instructions on what to do.
Are steel-toed boots acceptable in a gym just for safety precautions?
Yeah, how dressed up do I have to be for this
Yeah,
gym?
come in with an OSHA manual.
Yeah, this all isn't up to code. Can't work out here.
You'll
Yeah,
be hearing
or
from my lawyer.
yeah, he's yeah, he also
Even
is
even even that lawyer's not going to get you out of the recurring membership charges, man. You're screwed.
yeah. All right, we hear your lawsuit, but you still are locked in for another year and a half.
Only increasing 5% a month. Don't worry about it.
Yeah. It's the cost increases to cover the added benefits that we're not going to give you, but that we're just going to have.
We'll have donuts out once a month, though.
Yeah. Yeah, we'll
Seems
have.
counterintuitive, but I'm here for it.
Yeah, well, that was one thing I remember. I was briefly a member of like Planet Fitness, and that always was wild that they just had like, oh, it's Pizza Friday, and you're like, this is a gym, like this isn't a
Well,
soccer game in like
but
high school.
they're marketing to us, though, dude. They're not marketing to the people that are going to, LA Fitness and stuff like that. They know their clientele, and it's the people that probably do want to have a guilt piece of pizza on the way out the door. And like, I am not going to judge anybody that goes to a gym for that, because that's a selling point for me personally. So
Yeah, Yeah, I'm a fan of free food, but it's also just funny to have like a place that's like, like, hey, here's every modern piece of equipment that you could use to, get a full body workout, and then on your way out, we have chocolate cake.
Perfect.
All about balance.
I have been meaning to watch Matilda lately, so
There you go. Watch it at the gym, get a nice chocolate cake.
just use Miss Turnbull as my inspiration on the treadmill. It's perfect.
Yeah. Just got to visualize the goal. Okay, I'm running away. Although I saw, I think it was a 5K run, where it was the Dillinger Escape Plan 5K. And the only qualification was you had to be listening to Dillinger Escape Plan the whole 5K, and then you everyone who participated didn't really run. It was like they would run and then they'd like climb a tree and jump off it, or like like just do random parkour and just like air drumming. And
I want to see like a VR Oculus 5K, but I want to see it turned into like the old Crash Bandicoot levels where you're running from the boulder that's like chasing from behind you, and you just have to constantly look over your shoulder the whole time for just a straight 5K.
Yeah, just this. It's like, oh, what's motivating you? This giant boulder.
Tell you some Crash Bandicoot references really date you though.
Yeah, well, I picked up that remastering of the first three games.
Forgot they did that.
Yeah, I wonder. Oh yeah, it's right.
Does that include was Warped? Was that one of the first three? Is that the third one?
This one. Yeah, it's includes 3 games. So I think it's just the first 3. Yeah.
Nice.
Yep, Crash Bandicoot, and then Cortex Strikes Back, and then Warped.
Classic. Love those jet ski levels on Warped though, man. That was some of the finer days of my youth.
Well, and it's funny because like I had like, in terms of like what my family had growing up, it was like
I was just gonna ask because we're the same age. So we probably went through about the same progression here. So I'm curious what you're.
Yeah, so my parents bought this. This was probably like, I must have been like 3 or 4, maybe 5. We had an NES in the house for a while, and then the next one up from that was the we skipped a generation. My parents got a PS2.
Oh wow.
And so I got, that's kind of the first, other than like Duck Hunt and Mario, is like PS2 is where I put in a lot of hours and learned like, oh, I like video games. And then because it was like me, my younger brother and younger sister, everyone wanted to play games. Even if we had Game Boys, it's like anytime there was a new thing in the house, everyone wanted to play it.
I can relate to that, and I'll touch on that story when I go through my list here. But I can definitely relate.
Yeah, well, and so because of that, my parents bought a PS1, like the curved PlayStation model. So then it was like, oh, okay, all these games that I only played at my cousin's house, like Crash Team Racing or random PlayStation games.
I miss some of those old PS1 games, man.
Yeah, and that's partly why I'm and I don't have the money to like go full tilt into collecting, but I just have amassed like a decent little video game collection. And
keep things in good shape, they last, man. I mean,
and
it's the musician's mentality too.
Yeah, as long as you treat it nice, it won't break. And then it was like, okay, PS2, we had Game Boys and Game Boy Advance SPs kind of sprinkled in there for like Pokemon and other stuff. And then PS3, I remember I made my PlayStation Network ID on my friend's PlayStation, and then I didn't have a PlayStation for like probably another year and a half. And then, was like, okay, PS3 lasted through high school, like, that part of time. And then, or I guess early into college. And then the first system I bought was a PS4 with my money. Because I had a Wii also, like around the PS2, PS3. And that might have been my money. I think it was birthday and Christmas money. I just remember like it was during the first year where like you couldn't get your hands on a Wii, and me and my dad happened to go to Best Buy, and the employees had made a display thing in the video game section that just it spelled out Wii. And at first we were like, oh, that's cool. That they made it spelled out of boxes or whatever. And then I went and picked up one of the boxes and it was heavy. And I was like, oh, this is one of the so immediately went and bought it. It's like 14, 13-year-old me, whenever that, I can't remember when it came out.
Yeah, it would have been right about then. Yeah, it was freshman year, Wii bowling in the basement at a friend's house for sure.
Yeah, and now it's like, I can't move out of the way. I have the PS5 right there.
Ooh, nice. I'm waiting tight.
Switch, and then these I still haven't really played yet, but the NES and SNES classics, just to get all those old games on HD. Although I also have at some point I bought a Wii U so I could play like HD Wii games and Wii U games. A Retron 5 so I could upscale all the old cartridge games aside from N64.
Fancy.
Yeah, I've just been like slowly, because I used to have a lot more retro consoles, but I hated boxing them up for moving. So I traded in a bunch of them to get the Switch around the year it came out, and that was a way better decision than trying to like, I still have an SNES and a Dreamcast and like all these random consoles I'd never have adequate time to play. So
yeah, I'm stuck between deciding whether to get a Switch or a PS5 here soon. It's a rough life we live. Like my PS4 still works fine, man. Like until it like breaks, it's like I can still play the games. Like,
yeah, and there's not really that many PS5 games right now. It's like what, like Returnal, and then like Demon Souls remastered, and then other cross-platform ones.
Yeah, and it's like if I have time to play, it's like I'm hopping on for an hour. It's like I'll throw some Call of Duty on because it's mindless. It's like I can actually turn my brain off for a little bit. But no, other than that, like I've been finding some really fun co-op games I've never really like dug into before. But like Jordan and I, we've had a ton of fun at home. Just like there was if you've never heard of Overcooked, it's a super silly co-op game, and dude, it is so much fun, so much fun. And like this, like having gone to culinary school and worked as a chef and been out of the industry for a little while now, it's just like I have not felt anything as close to the actual rush of working on a line in a kitchen as I have playing that game. It's like just absolute insanity. So we had a lot of fun playing through that. And there's another one called It Takes Two, which came out recently.
Yeah, yep.
And that's a super, super interesting game. The storyline's amazing. The art in that game's super fun, and just kind of finding those types of games that it's actually like takes like some puzzle and some critical thinking, and it's been fun digging into that.
Yeah, I just replayed the BioShock series because I do it every year, like a favorite movie or book or something. And
that's fun.
And so after all of that, I was like, all right, I need a game that's like not constant, action, looking around corners, hacking things. I needed something a little more passive that I could, be patient with. And I went into, whatever games I have on for PS Plus, just from years of having it.
Yeah.
And I started playing, I'm almost done with it, but Ether 1, this like exploration puzzle game that
sounds fun. I haven't heard of that.
Yeah, it's like I'm trying to think of games that I've played that are similar to it. It's like, you're walking around, there's a story happening, but you're interacting with this environment with different puzzles. And I guess the premise of the game is you are part of a pilot program, in the future where you're just testing this equipment that allows patients with, you know, like Alzheimer's or dementia or other things, they can go kind of be active in their own, you know, mind generated worlds.
That's
um
super interesting. That's a super cool concept.
yeah, so it's like you're reliving this person's like experiences in a village and in a factory and and the whole time it's like some things are kind of like a little bit weird because it's not actual reality, and then those things you kind of have to fix, and then that fixes parts of the actual person's memory so you can keep doing the story. And
That's super, super interesting. It's a really cool concept.
yeah, and it was perfect for like, oh, this isn't going to take, you know, I'm not going to grind for 50 hours to get a
Yep.
sword.
Yeah. Just gonna escape my mind for a little bit and just wander, man. Sometimes you need it.
Yeah, I always think of in high school, it's like for every, you know, Halo or Call of Duty 2 or 3, um, you know, like LAN party, we would also play like, you know, we'd come back from the beach in my friend Steven's car, and uh my friend had his system on like, he was like the only friend we had that had like a 60-inch TV. So we'd go to his house and he had it hooked up to like an old stereo system, and we would play Flower, that game where you're just literally the wind and you're
Yeah,
like,
yeah. Oh my god, dude. Yeah. I've had a couple of late nights playing that
yeah.
game.
So relaxing.
Oh, yeah. It's like that game doesn't ever even cross my mind until those nights where it's like, that sounds perfect right now.
What's my objective? I'm the wind.
Yeah.
Awesome.
It's like I've had enough of this 3D visualizer on YouTube for the last 3 hours. Let's switch it into something else.
Yeah, that whole, well, in that game too, that introduced me. Actually, I don't know if he scored that. Did Austin Wintry? I know he scored Journey, like from the same.
Oh man, that is a side of things that I know nothing of, but
Yeah,
probably should be more aware of.
I tend to like. It's funny because like, yeah, you know, there's all these things that go into games that you don't even think about, and sometimes the music, you remember it more like playing the game than you do out of context. And then there's some games that are like, you know, like when I first heard the modern Doom soundtrack, I was like, who is this dude and how did he get those tones from the guitar?
Right? Is that something you've ever like looked into actively doing, like scoring a game or something like that?
Yeah, it's definitely on a bucket list.
That's on your list for the 30s.
Yeah, score a video game sound. Well, and because when I was at Grand Valley, my friend Sean, and he's continued on since then. His focus is video game music, and a lot of his discography is. It's almost like he built a discography that also you could chronologically see like his development as an arranger and producer, because it was, you know, like, oh, we're going to take the Final Fantasy VII soundtrack and, you know, rearrange it with live musicians and, you know, feature
That's
some of the
super, super
songs.
cool.
And so I have like in that realm of, you know, I get like 50 cents from Louder when royalties pay out whenever it happens. But
Cha-ching.
yeah, like stacking it up.
Rolling in it. Gonna make it hail.
Yeah, it's gonna be painful. Handful of change.
Brought a couple rolls of quarters with me, baby. Let's go.
Well, and I also bought recently this pianist I follow, Noah Kelman, who, you know, it's like him and Steve, I think his name's Feinke, and you know, I'm trying to think of, there's a third one. Or I guess Charles Cornell in a sense too, the YouTuber. Yep. They're all like those talented pianists that also have a business acumen, so they know how to like package things, and they have their coursework and they have their books and they have all this stuff. But Noah Kelman wrote a book on scoring for video games, and I was like, oh, this is like it's current and modern, but it still reflects on like the people who made awesome music for, chiptune and 8-bit and
Yeah, so I was gonna say, like back when limitations were a little bit more extreme than they are these days.
yeah, and there's a dude on YouTube who I don't follow super closely because I think he puts out like maybe a video every month. But I usually let it stack up and watch a bunch of them. 8-bit music theory. He'll do videos like examining the compositional development of Rainbow Road, and he'll look at Rainbow Road in all these different instances of all the different Mario Karts that have come out, and just be like, this guy took this part and like expanded on it. This dude loved doing this kind of rhythmic idea, and this dude quoted it 10 years later, and
That's super interesting.
just like,
There's a guy in the jam band scene who he does a lot of like 8-bit compositions of jam band classics as well. So that's kind of cool to see those pop up as well.
yeah, it's fun just having, I don't know, with it, especially with video games, like working within the limitations and seeing how those sound, and then also hearing, like I haven't played it, but I'm sure the newest version of Final Fantasy VII, I'm sure that has like, oh, that's the score. I didn't grow up with it, but like the people who grew up with it who are playing it now are like, oh, that's the theme from this character, and oh, it's like a real musician.
Yep, I'm pretty sure when did Final Fantasy VII come out? That would have been like 06, no, like 02, 03. I want to say. I'm only asking because I'm pretty sure that was the game that led to my dad's first divorce. I'm pretty sure that. I'm almost positive that was. So I guess going back a little bit. So my dad got a PS2. This sort of probably sixth grade, I think, would have been 2002, right around then when it came out. And maybe it was when the network adapter first came out.
Oh, yep.
Because SOCOM was like the first online game, and my dad got that, and him and I, it was kind of the same thing. Like it was him and I fighting for the PlayStation at that time. So he's like, well, we'll make this easier. We'll just get a second PlayStation, a second network adapter, so we can just play on the same clan. Which turned us like for 3 years playing on this clan in SOCOM, and it'd be like late night clan wars on a school night at like 2 a.m. and be like, all right, you're gonna sleep for a little bit before, but like we need you on the team tonight. So, but I'm pretty sure it was Final Fantasy VII that he sunk entirely too many hours into, and things worked out well for him.
Yeah, it's so funny, like to think like, yeah, if you go look at the first Final Fantasy VII, you're like, okay, it's got an art style, but compared to like some of the more cinematic presentations now, people are like, how would you spend hundreds of hours playing that? And it's like, go do it and see what happens.
Yeah, right. I vividly remember this would have been, I think I was a freshman in high school, and me and a few of my bandmates at the time, we were also like playing in our praise band at church, or at my church, and I like dragged them along for it. And I remember we had like a rehearsal that night, and we were like at my house, and my dad like came into my room, and we were like, hey Dad, we're gonna need a ride later to praise band practice. And he's like, oh, what time are you thinking? Like, I think it's probably around like 7 o'clock. And I just remember like him deadpan just going like, I'm actually going to be slaying a dragon then. never will forget that.
Wow, just like, can't take care of my kid. Play some games.
It's like the church is 3 blocks away. You can walk, you'll be fine. Like, yeah, you're probably right, but
it's cold. Yeah, it's always going to be cold.
It's all right. He's filming the shows now, so everything comes full circle.
Right. Yeah. So was it mainly like that was your first system was PS2, or was it something earlier?
First thing I remember having was a Sega Game Gear, just like handheld, like one of the original handheld systems. I think my dad had it on his own, even maybe prior to me being born. If not, it was when I was really young. But I remember we had a couple of those floating around. But PS1 was the first system I remember having, and I feel like Crash was like the first game I remember having. But there's a lot of. It's hard for me to kind of remember which games were PlayStation 1 and PlayStation 2, honestly. But I remember my sister and we played a ton of SSX, the snowboarding game back in the day. That was,
Yep.
we would always, so my grandparents live up in the UP. So anytime we took a trip up there, my dad would like strap a TV to the middle seat, fold it down, and like hook up a power converter, get the PlayStation set up. We'd be driving up north, and my sister and I would sit in back playing that the entire drive up and back. But no, once SOCOM came out, that was really the only game for years. And then didn't really play a whole lot in high school and stuff. And nowadays it's just PlayStation 4 and a little Call of Duty here and there. Some Fall Guys if I feel like I'm feeling a little frisky.
Yeah, because it's like I feel like a lot of my game decisions were like some of it was like for soul, like BioShock or something, and then most of it was like, oh, I went to my friend's house that I stay overnight at all the time, and he's got a GameCube, and now I want a GameCube because he's got Smash Bros and all these other games I can't play.
Yeah, see, I never had the Nintendo systems, man. So Smash Bros is one of those games that like I'll have fun playing it, but I will just get wrecked constantly because I don't know what I'm doing, man. It's button mashing, like. And some friends that are like die hard into Smash Brothers. It's like, I'll play you once, and like, nope, never again. You've ruined that for me. I'm sorry.
Yeah, and they already know all the shorthand from like competitive plays. They're just like, oh yeah,
exactly.
I'm edge guarding and wave dashing and
Thanks. Yeah,
just like,
once
are we still
throwing around terminology like that? Like, are we playing a game right now? Like, what's happening?
Are we all playing the same game? I see Mario fighting Pikachu. Is that still what we're doing?
No, we've been playing a lot of board games lately, though. Sinking some time into Catan and Pandemic. Ironically, have you played the board game Pandemic before?
No,
heard of?
I want to play it, but it was funny. The one time recently, I remember I went over to because I live down the street from Hannah Lane, and so yeah, Hannah and Chris live in a house a couple blocks away, and they wanted to host a game night, and I think I was like I wasn't like there to hang out. I was like on the way to do something else or dropping off something, and they're like, oh, if you want, we could play Pandemic, we're about to play it. And then they read the like how many people. I think it's like, isn't it like 5 is the max?
You need 2 to 4. Yeah, I don't think you can have more than 4.
Okay, so that's where it was like, oh, okay. At the time, they had a roommate, and then Drew Nager was there too.
And you're not trying to play fifth wheel there. I get it.
No, I was just like, well, and they're like, oh, it's only 2 to 4. And I'm like, all right, I'll just leave.
No, it's a fun one. Ironically, I think we found it like a week or 2 before real life Pandemic, but it was nice to sink some time into that throughout. But we actually just found a 2-player version of Catan, which changes everything. Play at home now, not have to have anybody over. It's awesome. Awesome. It's only card game based, no tiles, but it's similar gameplay.
Whoa.
Definitely worth checking out if you're a Catan fan.
I've been in and out usually because I'll like finally get it back in my head of like how to play, and then the game night I was going to is canceled, or I get busy usually. And because I've been meaning to check out like was it House Rules, that bar.
I think I've heard of it.
It's a bar on Ionia. Yeah.
Like they just have a bunch of board games and stuff that you just like borrow and play while you're there.
Yeah, it's like a bar, not a barcade, but a bard. I
like
bard.
It seems appropriate giving everything.
So it's like that's been somewhere I've been meaning to go, and I know plenty of I know people who work at like Vault of Midnight, and I know people who I could call up and be like, teach me, and we could go to that spot. I just haven't made the time, and usually the people who could go, they don't want to go on like like a Tuesday night or something. They want to go on like a Friday or something.
Yeah, good luck getting me out during the week these days, man. Good luck. It's tough. Sleep by 9 most days.
Yeah, I'm still up like not super, super late, but like later than, I don't know, later than I think I should be, but
Yeah, if the pandemic did anything for me, man, it's like I was fortunate enough to be able to work through everything, but not having things to stay up late for on the weekends. It's just like my schedule just like shifted earlier and earlier and earlier to the point where it's like I'm still waking up at 6 in the morning on a Saturday. It's like, well, I'm well rested. Like, man, staying up past 10, it's like I better be like out and have a Red Bull or two before I do anything, because it's an internal clock feels like a 70-year-old at this point.
yeah. I'm after this. I'm gonna go rehearse with Lauren and Robbie just to get ready for this one song for Sunday. And I jokingly said, like I sent a message like, you got any more yerba mates hanging around there? Like could use one of those right now.
Yep, need a little pick me up, just a skosh.
Yeah, because I've been doing with all the transcribing I've had to do in the last few days. I've like, oh, my alarm goes off at 7. At some point before 9, I'm out the door going up to Third Coast, and then I just put in, not only transcribing, because usually it'd be like, all right, I got like the next few bars down. Oh, hey, someone needs me. Okay, I'll be right back. Oh, nope, this pinged. Got to update that. Oh, email, got it. And then,
So are you working for Third Coast then, or are you just renting off the space there?
Sort of just combined. Like I rent an office there, and I do get paid for session work. I'm technically you know, I'm technically supposed to be doing more social media stuff. I have a plan for that. Because the last few times I've posted or tried to post, there's been weird. It's like I can't, because it's not a band or me personally. I can't be as like here's what I would post if I had my socials running. Because if I like take just a casual video of a client and try to put it in a story thing, like, oh, you mind if I take? Sometimes they're like, that was the worst take, and he put it up, and then you're like, fine, I'll delete it.
Sorry, bro.
It's like 50 people maybe saw it.
Right.
Your career's over. What are you gonna do? And then I've had other times where people like I've shared something knowing that I'm gonna make it a post the next day, because there's like supposedly those windows of time that are best to post. So if I can help it, I'm like, oh, I'll just post then and not
those
care.
Tricky algorithms, man.
Yeah. So I've had it where I've shared something from another page, and then the optics, were misinterpreted by somebody, and it's like a dumb thing somebody's mad at, and then like, oh yeah, their manager got like their manager. I'm like, all right, let me draft a proposal for everything I have to post.
It's like, need people signing NDAs as they enter the studio. Like, good God.
Yeah, like I wanted to do, like gear stories, because there's so many interesting stories to some of the gear that's acquired in the studio. And that wasn't even like, it's like, we own all this, right? It's like, yeah. It's like, why can't we post about it? Well, I don't really want to post about it just because of these things that, not even like, oh, it's a dark secret. It's just like, it's not aesthetically what they want, and or something. And even then, it's like there's no, like I don't get any direction. I just get reactions all the time. So I'm still in that nebulous, like, is this okay? Is this fine?
Yeah.
Like,
having to run everything by somebody constantly.
Yeah, because when I don't, then I still get a text that's like, hey, saw that post. You mind adding? It's like, okay. It's like, sure, I appreciate the feedback, I guess. But it's also like, I don't know. It's like most of the clients that come into Third Coast aren't looking at Instagram being like, that's wow. They're just like, it's a studio, and I want, I want to be a SoundCloud rapper. And then it's like, all right, now you book your stepdad booked studio time. Or like,
does that happen?
There's been, I don't know if Kevin's worked directly with them. There's been people who usually it's like a young artist or someone who's trying to intern. There's been a lot of like prospective interns that they're like, oh, I make my own beats, check it out. And you're like, all right, you're like 12. Like, they sound fine for being 12. Like, good job. You're also just 12. And other times it's like, I don't know, people book. It seems like there's a mix of like the working musician clients, the more professional clients that can kind of book. They can plan for like chunks of time to work on stuff, and then there's a bunch of like, like I want to make a Christmas song for my church, and then
The fill in the cracks type stuff.
Yeah, and it's like, that's cool. Can I post about it? And then they're like, no, and I'm like, but it's church.
An interesting podcast idea though would just be like getting studio engineers to just tell horror stories. Just because I can only imagine, like I feel like, because I'm granted, almost all the recording that I've done has been at Third Coast, so I've been fortunate enough to be in that space with those people, and but to like, always like to think we're really prepared going into something like that. And even when you do feel like exposed in a part or two, it's like there's got to be worse stories than like, that this isn't the bottom of the barrel.
Yeah, that made me think of two things. The guest producer we had for the Earth Radio stuff, Paul Clemson, he like, because he's anticipating him being involved, or like, oh, we got to shed these tunes, like we got to play them out, we got to rehearse twice a week for 2 months and get it all ready
ad nauseum, get to the point you're sick of the songs by the time you walk in the studio.
Yeah, and so doing these full band trackings, it's only 5 tunes, so we got it, the bulk of it done in the first 2 days. And that he was like, oh, you guys are like way more prepared than like some of the session dudes I've worked with in like Nashville. And we're like, oh, that's cool. And then he elaborated, it was like, yeah, we don't have to deal with things like tune your guitar. And I'm like, what? There's like regular session people who can't tell when they're out of tune. Like, I don't know if that's inspiring or horrible. It's just people getting this work that they don't
it's
even know.
For Madison down there, though, I'll tell you what.
Yeah, he's probably as soon as he gets connected with a couple studios, he's gonna never have to leave a studio.
Good for him. Stoked.
Well, and then the other thing I thought about was Kellen Boersma, who
good buddies with Max Brown, right? He's playing with Neil Francis, is that right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I actually just saw them in Detroit. And
nice. How was that? I've been meaning to catch them. I mean, I've been hearing nothing but good things about those guys.
Yeah, they sound great. They have a great blend of like the vintage and the there's like, this sounds kind of like classic rock or funk, or
he just kind of has that aesthetic to him for sure. Just really leaning into that.
And just, I was impressed too, and probably because Kellen's also the keyboard tech, so they have someone who can repair everything. But I did
not know that. That's cool.
Yeah, Kellen works for the Chicago Electric Piano Company.
Oh, that's like the big one down there, right?
Yeah, like I don't know exactly like if he knows how to do everything or if he's focused on like circuitry or like the innards of a keyboard, but I assume he knows how to repair and like paint stuff.
Even me not knowing how to do any of that or what it means, just following Jim Alfredson on Facebook, just seeing him post that type of stuff like constantly is just like just so interesting to see how that stuff works.
Yeah, like Kellen, he's playing guitar and then keyboard tech, because all they tour with is Neil mainly leads the band from an organ and then a clav with the whammy mod, and then a Yamaha, was it CP70, like the electric acoustic grand. So it's like, how many times have they had to like retune something or replace something or adjust the action, it's humid, it's cold, it's
Yeah, and I've always wondered how those whammy bars affect intonation on stuff like that too.
Yeah, I'm sure he has to like every couple shows just like do a quick like, all right, let's tune it.
Yeah. So I see.
um
I've just recently discovered Lachy Doley. Is that how you pronounce it? Lachy Doley? Lachy Doley? He's like an Australian clav player that plays with one of those.
oh, I
And
might
he's nuts, dude. Nuts. Like I've
just
seen a couple of his videos go viral. He's got like some Jimi Hendrix stuff that he covers.
okay, yeah, I was gonna say like I think that's where I've seen him before was his Jimi
Yeah,
Hendrix video.
dude, insane. Yeah, definitely a good Facebook follow because he's got some wild tones he's crunching out of that thing.
Yeah, that's like I feel like that's like all the you know that's one of the separation points of like keys and guitar. It's like guitars can you could win over a crowd just bending something.
Exactly.
And it's like
with a little overdrive on it, just a little, and people are just like, "What do we have here?"
it's like what the note was here and now it's up here and it's back down.
But he's on a piano. I don't understand.
And that's what I definitely want to try and get a guitar for that reason too. To just I can do a version of the guitar aesthetics.
Well, I feel like I've seen some pictures. Does Max ever play with one in War and Treaty? I feel like I've seen him at least bust it out in a picture or two. I don't know if it's ever actually in sets, but
yeah, I'd be curious. I feel like most of what I've seen him play is bass or guitar,
yeah.
But it would be interesting. I don't know if Michael Trotter uses them.
Ooh, that could be too. Yeah,
but
man, those guys too. Just that's been awesome to watch.
Yeah, the progress they've made and
yeah,
all the cool stuff they're involved in.
Yeah, and I mean, they're taking Nashville by storm. And yeah, even back to Neil Francis, like seems like they've done such a good job at. It seems like they're getting on. I mean, they can play like the indie festivals, they can play the jam band festivals. They just haven't pigeonholed themselves into that one scene, and they're kind of taking all of them over, which is just a super smart play.
Yeah, and a lot of like because the day of the Detroit show was when the new album dropped, so I picked up the vinyl and that whole new record. It's like the big difference I think between Changes and the new one. I can't remember the name of it, but that it's like this the psychedelic factor. There's a lot more like phasers and swirling textures and
that ethereal type background.
Yeah, and then because they have like the rock, the funk, some disco vibes, just a lot of different like character that still sounds like Neil. And I think I'm curious to see how because after the show, Kellen was like, all right, what do we need to work on? And I'm like, interesting question to ask your audience.
Right.
But I was saying like, and I'm sure he thought about it too, because of just where Neil's voice tends to sit when he sings, is getting the clarity of that over the band in certain rooms. Because L Club they've treated it sound wise, so it's definitely like it feels more contained. It's not as reflective, but it was hard to like. There were times where I'm like, I know roughly the words he's saying.
Yeah. Did he have a decent turnout at L Club?
It was probably I don't know. I want to say there was like at least 70, which is funny because like they just did that tour with the Black Pumas, and it's like obviously Black Pumas are going to draw for that show, but you'd think being in that little moment of spotlight there'd be enough new fans regionally to just boost some numbers. But
slowly but surely they'll be doing it for sure. They've got it, so
they'll just keep popping up on festivals.
Yep.
That's
a smart way to do it, man. Build your audience all summer and tour it all winter.
Yep. Yeah.
And actually getting to see people get back on that track again for the first time, and just seeing like some bands that like really utilized their time well in the last couple of years. And I mean, a couple that come to mind like Billy Strings, Goose, like those guys have just like maintained and like grew exponentially when other people were kind of falling off and struggling to create content and staying relevant. And there, a lot of people are going to be rewarded for that work and doing it right in those couple years off, and it's just cool to see.
Yeah, it's cool to see, like, yeah, the people who, there's some, like, I think of like the Crane Wives, like they've all individually started doing some stuff again, aside from maybe like, I don't think I've seen Kate or Ben.
I was like, I didn't know there was a Ken, secret fifth member. Like
Ken Zitosberry. Uh, but I saw Emily, this week at the Dogtown, kind of threw a tiny little 3-year anniversary party,
nice.
And then I saw Ben at Steve Leaf's wedding and Dan Rickabis. So I was like, hearing a little bit about what they were doing individually, and then to see like their Spotify metrics that they posted, where it's like, oh, they've put in a ton of work on the back end and they had some things pop, and now, they have like, what was it?
I didn't even see it. There's some pretty good numbers.
Yeah, I took a photo because it was not to be just like, look at this, but I took it because Kate had a great post outlining like, don't let these numbers fool you. Like, this is 10 years of work. This is some luck. This is some smart decisions, some bad decisions. But yeah, they had 16 million streams this year, and they have
good
one.
For them, man. That's awesome.
Yeah, they have a little over 1 million listeners in 152
super
countries.
Impressive. Good for them, man. That is awesome to hear.
Yeah.
I mean, well deserved on every front, but it's just cool. I mean, trying not to take the scene around town for granted, and just how lucky we are to have that many talented people. Yeah. And everybody doing such vastly different things, but everybody still wanting to collaborate and come together and go to people's shows. And like, that's honestly the one thing that like this scene in particular, that like, granted, I haven't been entrenched in other musical scenes, but having played other places and played with other bands and other scenes, and what they say when they come to Grand Rapids is, it's like, we got something special here, man, for sure.
Yeah, I hear that I've heard that from Chicago people too, that I see them on a wedding or just some random gig and they happen to be there and they're musicians, and they're like, yeah, you guys got something like way different than most places. And I think people forget, like, as normal as it can be when you're gigging around the state for the first few times, you're like, oh, there's breweries, there's places to play, and like, think of a city, there's somewhere to play in it. And you can tour. You don't have to really leave the state your first time. It's not like, oh, I live in Nebraska, like, am I going to play Lincoln all the time? Like,
sick.
Yeah, it's like Omaha and Lincoln, and it's like, yeah, it's like Michigan's got, like, oh, you want the bougie tourist, Traverse City. You want the bougie college town, Ann Arbor. You want the historic music town, Detroit. You want the small big city that keeps developing all the time, Grand Rapids.
And like, honestly, the best example of that is Christmas at Critters, man. Like, what a cool way to just get everybody we want to play with involved in one project that doesn't eat up people's time throughout the year, have it be a seasonal thing, have it just be this living, breathing thing that can just go on forever. Whoever wants to be a part of it this year, next year, the year after. It's, I don't know. Every year we're just absorbing more people into the mix. And have you had a chance to go to one of the live shows that we've done in the past?
No, I think I wanted, well, that's a weird way to phrase it. I think I wanted to go. In 2019, I remember wanting to go, and I think we had a show the same night.
So she goes.
Yeah, and that's always the tricky thing too, is like, everyone's so supportive of each other that there's times where you're like, we're all doing great, we're all gigging, but then we never see all we see like bits and pieces. Like, I randomly saw Patty PerShayla today because she was tracking something at Third Coast for Christian Nickel.
Nice.
And
Nice. Is
I was
she like is Crooked Spires doing an album in studio? Or is he
yeah,
just doing some solo stuff?
I think it's Crooked Spires related.
Okay.
I can't remember because I did Rhodes for that first record, and I know I've done recording with him since then, and I think it was all for Crooked Spires, but
That's cool.
yeah. So
it's cool that Patty's getting involved with that too. And her jumping on with Accidentals, man, she's been killing it too. Like that's super awesome to see.
Yeah,
I haven't had a chance to see her with the Accidentals yet, but I can only imagine that is just like the perfect addition to that group.
Yeah, just another like personality, another bass playing, another
badass lady, man. Just
yeah, like when they announced it, I was like, oh, that's like the perfect fit. Like
exactly. I was just like, oh yeah, duh. Why hadn't they done this before?
yeah. Yeah, because I've only Michael was at the Dogtown thing and we caught up briefly, but I wanted to, I saw Patty like as I was loading out to leave, and she was like, quick in and out before she had to go back and track, and I wanted to just be like, so what was it like? Like you were in another band for on these tours all around chunks of the country, and like it must be crazy to like you get done with that and you've had a fulfilling and awesome experience. Like does that, like I'm sure that ramps up the the band, the Mayhaps. Like it just makes you like, oh, now I know what I could do and how I could book the band and what places we could play.
Yeah, and you learn, man. Like that's the thing that you can like in those situations more than anything is just learn. So much to learn, never an end to it, and seeing the right way to do things, the wrong way to do things. Sometimes it's just as beneficial to find out the wrong way to do things. And
yeah,
but
yeah, it's great to like have a scene where everyone feels approachable. There's no, I don't know, there's no weird gatekeeping. If there's any gatekeeping, it's like always at the it's people who aren't in the scene. It's like corporate entities or
yeah, no, it really does feel that way. Like I don't know. Yeah, it's no animosity. It doesn't feel like there's like this competition for validation. Like
right.
it's just everybody's there, and like people know, like, cool, if I'm off that night and we don't have gigs, like, see you there. If not, like, cool, glad you got a gig, man. Hope you guys crush it. You know what I mean? And it's
right.
been that way for so long. And just like I said, and that's for me getting to do the kind of Zack and Friends thing going forward and having a rotating lineup. And like I said, using that as the excuse, like, damn, man, maybe I haven't been able to see one of your shows in a while. So, like, how about we just play a show together instead?
Right.
And, like, make it work that way. It's like, cool, that'll force us to have to get together and hang out and work on some stuff. And
yeah,
just the more people you play with, the better you get too, man.
Yeah, that's one thing I've been craving. Not even, well, I guess not even like the variety, like playing with a variety of people, because I'm in multiple groups. It's really sinking into that privilege of getting to play with other people, where you like on the stage you might be like, this is awesome, this is great, and then as soon as the concert's over, there's you're decompressing and maybe you start getting excited about the next gig, but there's also all the logistics stuff. And now it's like I'm considering like, well, what if I took a year off weddings? Like what could I do with those open dates? What could Earth Radio do? What could Normal Mode do? What could what gigs could I play with Mark? There's everyone's kind of like the trains are slowly leaving stations again.
Exactly. Yeah, and I kind of tiptoed into that realm as well, starting to DJ some weddings in the last year or two as well. Just thinking like got the gear, have the time on the weekends sometimes. So I'll be 4 or 5 weddings for friends, throughout the summer, just set it up, and it's been kind of fun being able to do that too, just hands off, hands free.
Yeah, because it's like most of the weddings I do aren't, it's not planning intensive on my end. It just becomes like I don't know, it's like you're playing, it's that weird feeling of like you feel, I don't know, I don't want to say like like all the time, but there's times where it feels like, you know, being in that environment, being, you know, behind the scenes, but also kind of the feature of the reception in a way.
Hmm.
It's like people are gonna, you know, a couple drinks, they're just like music, and they just go crazy, and everyone's having a good time. Stuff might be weird on stage, and then it's hard to divorce those moments from the crowd being like, you're like, you guys are so awesome. This is the first band I've seen since quarantine.
Right.
And
Yep.
it's like, thanks. I'm gonna leave before you notice my smile's gone. And
Professional panderer, though, I'll tell you what.
yeah. So it's very like, I don't know. Like I joked about I have to play Piano Man tomorrow, and it's, you know, it's just like I've just something about that song, like early in my life, is just, it's ruined it forever for me. And I guess just being a man that plays piano, that the joke writes itself for every person at every bar that's ever walked into a bar and seen me play piano. Hey, could you play? You're a man. You play piano, man. Um, yeah, especially when it's like, I don't know, the only times I've played it, I didn't, like the first time I had to play it for a Blue Water Kings gig, I didn't practice it. I just sight read it on the gig. So I was like, I don't want to like work on this anymore than
Think
I have
time into
to.
this at all.
Yeah, and you know, it's not a difficult tune, aside from people who mess up the form, like, oh, when is the la di das, when is the solo, when is this part, and then the score I was using at the time, I should have at least skimmed it, because whoever arranged the score, like it could have been, you know, like, hey, put some repeats, put some, you know, like this verse is the same basically, but they would put it like, it's the only time I've seen music with a 1, 2, and 3 DCL codas. So every time I'd get to like, you know, page 7, go back to page 2, get to page 8, go back to page 5, get to page 10, go back to page 7. And I was like, this is not, like, it's already bad enough. And then I was like on my iPad, just like clicking forward and back.
Furiously. Yeah.
It's like,
yeah, not the good old days where you just a quick thumb lick and a boom, you're there. It's like, no, we're tapping this thing 8 times to get back to where I need to be here.
yeah, which it makes me like so grateful for the people who get that when they make digital scores, and they're like, oh, we could fit it all on 2 pages. Like, why are we making it 12?
I don't know if you've seen one, or maybe you have incorporated one into your rig. I know Elijah has like a foot pedal page turner.
Oh yeah, yeah. I do have one. That actually reminds me. I was gonna put it in. I have a like an old vintage suitcase that you know, I just put like cables and like an extra sustain pedal, extra power.
Just the backups.
Yeah, so I think I just need to put my foot pedal, because every time I put it in my bag, I take it out when I'm like, oh, I don't really need it for a couple days, and then I forget it for the gig that I need it for. So
Yep, all the time. But yeah, I'd never seen one of those before. I was like, that makes things so much easier. And like people not knowing that you're even looking at the screen half the time because I'm just changing it with my foot. Like, it's a beautiful place to be.
yeah, I got really used to it at Grand Valley after my sophomore year, because I was part of the new music ensemble, and the professor composer who runs it, Bill Ryan, he I feel like he's, in terms of like writing grants, I feel like there's not a lot of people who've written grants as well as he has, because I think of all the things that have been funded, like he gets, you know, money from the department, obviously, like being
Yeah.
part of the school, but like he's gotten like 3 different National Endowment of the Arts grants. He's gotten like, you know, other competitive grants for like different things, and one of the things he did for the ensemble was he bought a set of iPads that you'd have to turn in once you graduate, but for the time when you get into the ensemble, it's always like you're never in it like right away. Like he kind of scouts you and
Yeah.
then you audition. So I got to use an iPad for like 2 years on all sorts of gigs, and he had bought foot pedals for everyone too. So it was like, oh, now this feels like a modern chamber group, because we don't even have to, like, we can still make eye contact for cues and hit our foot pedals to change pages, and like it felt way more secure with that
that's
tech.
really cool.
It's
so you guys next show's coming up though. Is that the Bells and the Pyramid Scheme show then? You guys have anything coming up before then?
December 17 and 18 for Earth Radio. Normal mode's going to be at GR Noir on December 15th, which is a Wednesday.
I've been meaning to check that place out too. I've heard good things about that spot.
Yeah, I just played there the day after Thanksgiving with a different trio, and I was surprised, like, because I hadn't played there since probably April, and I had been kind of spoiled with that listening room residency.
Yeah.
Just like, a Steinway and all these accommodations. And that piano, the first couple of times I played it, I was like, okay, it's a digital grand piano, like it's fine. But for whatever reason, the other night it sounded like it sounded and felt way better to play than I remember it. So I was like, oh, this seals the deal as, like, it's a venue with a house piano that I enjoy playing. Like, there's not a lot of those in the state.
Yeah, no, for sure.
Now we got 2 of them in Grand Rapids.
No, that's super nice. But yeah, I think without giving away too many details, our show with band name to be announced. I think we're February 12th in Grand Rapids, but details to follow soon.
Nice.
Very soon. Yeah.
Pretty sure I know what show that is, but
I think you probably do.
Yeah.
There'll be a tent and it'll be warmed. It'll be a good time.
Yeah, it'll be just a grand old time. Yeah, but this was great hearing about your recent show coming back to the stage, and all the video game talk and all that stuff. Well-rounded, if nothing else. But once once we get things off the ground and get rolling and have a name and some stuff, would love to get back on and shoot some shop and all that good stuff. That good stuff, man. So I guess, even though you don't have a band name for this new project, is there like a hub or like social media that people should go to get these updates? Honestly, my personal Facebook is the best spot to find it. There is a Zack Volkers music page as well, so you can find that. Honestly, it seems like it's almost easier to get traction on the actual page than it is the music page these days, but you know how she goes. But no, we'll, once we get the new project rolling out, you'll definitely be seeing us blasting that out on all the social medias. So, me, D, Brandino, Ben Steer, Elijah, and Adam Prado, we're going to be coming at you here pretty soon. Awesome. Yeah, we'll keep an eye out for that, and hopefully I can, actually come see it. We'll make it happen. And if not, then we're just going to have to get you in a Zack Friends lineup here ASAP. Yeah, that'd be fun. Make it happen. Awesome. Well, I appreciate you having me, brother. Thanks for sharing some time and some space, and it's good to catch up, and definitely shooting to hit one of those 2 shows coming up at your guys' soon too. So awesome. Yeah, we'll keep an eye out for you there. Looking forward to it, man. Cool. Yeah, I'll guess I'll run into you soon. Sounds good, my man. Yeah, hope to see you sooner than later, brother. Yeah. See ya. Cheers, man. Have a good rehearsal. Catch you later, man. See ya. Hey, thanks for checking out this episode with Zack Volkers. It's nice to have the conversations range on this podcast. And I say that because I'm just trying to think of the right word. But the fact that, these are the types of conversations I would have with Zack if we were on a co-bill together, or if I saw him at, like the Jammies or something, like a local event. We would talk about all the types of stuff we did. It was nice getting to learn a little bit more about the music stuff he's been up to since he left Mellophobics, and glad that we could share this conversation with you around the holiday season, because he just did a show the day before Thanksgiving, and this is the week after it, so It's cool to hear hot, fresh updates. Again, if you want to support the podcast, you can head on over to patreon.com/DutcherSnedeker. You can go to DutcherSnedeker.com for everything else. And we will see you next week for another episode of Mitten Backstage. Take care.